I'm Andrew Tyler. I milk a herd of 1,200 Holstein cows here at Tongala in north central Victoria with my wife Robin and my two sons James and Sam. Today we're going to look at the development of our roof concrete feed pad. We purchased the farm in 1989 in a rundown state with a very basic infrastructure, milking 180 cows. Since then we have progressively increased the herd and currently run a herd of 1,200 cows. The farm now has a usable area of 740 hectares, of which 340 hectares is grazing area and 400 hectares is used for cropping. As we expanded the herd, we found it more challenging to fully feed cows using bale feeding in the dairy with grazed pasture and conserved forages fed out in the paddock. Our grazing efficiency was declining and we were wasting a lot of silage and hay. So in 2004 we installed a basic feed pad with a compacted gravel surface. It was about 300 metres long with a single concrete modular trough along the main laneway near the dairy. Then in 2005 we replaced the farm's 32 swing-over herringbone dairy parlour with a new 56 stand rotary dairy, which reduced milking time and enabled us to differentially feed wheat and canola meal to cows according to their daily milk yield. The feed pad helped us reduce our feed wastage substantially, but it wasn't ideal for cow health and we found ourselves having to spend $20,000 to $30,000 a year just to maintain its gravel surface. I realised this was money would be better spent towards a new concrete feed pad, so in 2015 the decision was made to build a concrete feed pad. Another thing on our minds was the impact of heat stress on our cows and the merits of providing shade as well as evaporative cooling. When we built the new dairy in 2005, we fitted the holding yard with a solid roof and sprinklers, and in 2013 added fans. So it is an effective cooling centre, but we knew that we needed to do more. So after looking at many concrete feed pads in the region, we decided to build one in two phases. First, we built a flood wash concrete feed pad, and then as soon as we could afford it, we built a shade structure over the feed pad. We built the feed pad in 2015. The following year we had the big wet, which was extremely difficult for cows and the farm team, even with our capacity to feed PMRs on the new feed pad. So we considered how the facility could be used not only to feed cows but also to house them during extreme wet weather and protect our pastures and laneways. There was ample room either side of the feed pad that we could use for this purpose. 2018 to 20 were tough going for us due to the drought, but in early 2021 with improved climatic conditions and milk prices we were able to progress to the second phase of the project. We built the feed pad in 2015 at a cost of $740,000. Construction of the shed over the feed pad began in July 21 and we completed in February 22 at an additional cost of $1 million. The facility is 250 long and 50 metres wide on a 0.75 degree slope for flood washing and is orientated east-west to maximise shade during summer. The structure is wide span with an open web truss, portal frame and corrugated iron roof, 21 degree pitch, posts are 5 metres high at the eaves. We fitted a centre ridge vent cover to keep the sun out of the shed on hot afternoons. The feed pad has a 6 metre wide concrete central drive alley, post and rail cow feed barrier, two 6.5 metre wide concrete cow feeding alleys, tipping water troughs, sprays fitted to cool cows while eating. Either side of the feed pad under the roof line is a compost bedded pack loafing area with 900 cows in the shed. Each cow has 8 metres square, which is less than recommended. So we have created the 20 metre wide outside loafing area along both sides of the shed, which cows have access to overnight. Tapes can be used to contain cows to the feed pad when it's being used to feed PMR with grazing. When the cows are being housed in the facility, the tapes are removed, giving cows open access to the loafing area from cow feed alley between the water troughs. As the contractors were building the shed, we continued to use it every day to feed PMR, and in November 2021, with the frame up, the contractors progressively put the roof iron on, starting at the east end of the shed and working their way along. It was really interesting to observe that nearly all the cows would eat all of the PMR from the section of the shed, the feed bunk that was in shade first before venturing into the sun section of the feed pad, even when the daily maximum was only 21 degrees. It's not until you put a shed up that you realise how much cows love shade. The concrete feed pad was a great investment on its own, and its capital cost was paid back before the shed was added. Feed waste was reduced to 2 to 3%, and the sprays along the neck rail provided sufficient cooling to enable cows to maintain their feed intakes fairly well in periods of very hot weather. They stopped looking to go to the roof dairy holding yards. We are pretty satisfied with how the farm is performing since the shed was built over the feed pad, and expect that in current milk prices it will pay for itself within 4 years. In the very wet spring of 2022, many large grazing herds in the region dropped production by about 20%. We kept our cows in the shed 24/7 rather than walking them through the mud and wet pastures, and although that put additional pressure on the bedding management, our production remained stable. Our milk solids production is currently 20% higher than at the same time last year. Our cows are also healthier in terms of mastitis and lameness, and half the body condition score higher. They are cleaner and therefore easier to milk, and the farm's labour efficiency has not changed, and there has been little staff turnover. We keep things fairly simple. We manage our milkers in 2 groups, but we're not running a high lac and a low lac herd. We prepare and feed 1 mixed ration, and we milk twice a day. It takes only 15 minutes to bring the cows from the shed to the dairy. That's a saving, but the flip side is that someone needs to be there to feed mixers and flood wash and cultivate while the cows are being milked. So you've got to be organised. The dairy parlour is equipped with milk meters. Cows are fed to their current milk yield in the bale with varying quantities of crushed wheat and canola meal with a mineral mix. Cows no longer have to experience the discomfort and stress associated with grazing in wet winter conditions and hot summer conditions. To support the PMR feeding system and give us a higher return on the capital tied up in our land, we have taken many hectares out of our grazing rotation and now use it in a corn-veg double cropping program, producing about 30 tonnes of dry matter per hectare of good quality feed with high water use efficiency. With this system, you've got to have capacity to grow as much feed as you can yourself and be comfortable with that system. The facility is functioning well and nothing major needs to be altered. If I had my time again, I would have spent more money on earthworks initially to set up the outside loafing areas. I would also have limited the number of cows using the shed through the winter to 600 to help manage the risk of wet bedding. This could be achieved by adjusting the proportion of cows calving in autumn and spring. Fans and lights would be nice, but I'm finding them hard to justify from what I've seen so far. If I do decide to go to fit them in the future, it would be to help dry the bedding as well as provide additional cow cooling. At this stage, we are inclined to build a second shed of similar size next to this one and operate it as a loose housing facility with a compost bedded pack to reduce the stocking density in the current facility. But we will consider free stalls further before committing to it. In the meantime, we are progressively developing the farm's feed storage infrastructure to better handle the larger quantities of feed being stored and fed out each day.